Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
Are you looking to play at the next level? MSN is now offering player recruitment videos. We are excited to partner with you and your family in getting you to the next level. To learn more about our packages and what we offer, head over to the MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Remember, your journey starts with a click.
Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's going to go in! Northwestern is up from 12, now at 10.
As the voice of Michigan student athletes, the Student Advisory Council's role
is to convey the message of how high school sports are supposed to be played.
We were responsible for helping the MHSAA maintain a positive and healthy atmosphere
in which interscholastic students can thrive.
We believe athletes should be competitive,
sportsmanlike, and excel academically.
We believe students in the stand should have fun,
but not take the focus away from the game.
We believe coaches should act as teachers,
helping student athletes develop while still keeping high school sports in perspective.
We believe that parents should always be positive role models
and be supportive of their child's decisions.
We believe officials commit their own time to high school sports,
and respect should always be shown and given to them.
The most important goal for student athletes is to enjoy high school sports
while maintaining a high level of respect for all those involved in the games.
Enjoy the game.
Are you looking to take your game to the next level? Did you know that MSN is now offering player recruitment videos? Our packages include a player profile where you show your preferred positions, the club, the league, or school that you play in, your current coach contact information, and more. The highlight videos could be self-submitted, 15 to 30 clips that will be put into a 3 to 7 minute long video. Video review of your Huddle, VO, or other platforms that you might have video on, as well as for an additional charge, MSN can come out and film games for you to create those clips. Our coach evaluation process, which is also an additional charge, where we have college coaches from various levels across the United States that will review your game film and provide feedback on how to improve that film, as well as also evaluating your play and what you can improve on. To learn more about our packages and what we offer, head over to the MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Remember, your journey starts with a click.
Our mission is to help players take their game to the next level and reach their potential. Not only do we help develop fundamental technical skills such as ball control in tight spaces with different surfaces, dribbling at speed and changing direction, using a variety of 1v1 skills to create space, receiving on a half turn, hook turn, and out of the air, finishing off the dribbling, one-touch, volleys, and headers. We help players get comfortable performing these skills at game speed with pressure and with both their dominant and non-dominant foot. In addition, we help players with their speed of play, awareness of space, defenders and teammates, and also dominate with their off-the-ball movement. We offer a variety of services such as one-on-ones, small groups, large groups, as well as team sessions. We have an experienced coaching staff that is professional, friendly, patient, while still holding players to high standards and holding them accountable. No matter what level you're at as a player, I'm confident we can help you get better. Over the past 3 years, we've built one of the best soccer-specific training facilities in the country and developed one of the most detail-oriented programs to help out players. Visit our website.
In for Baccarat, and that goes in! Hugo Baccarat gives Flint City a 3-2. Buckley, the ball falls to Buckley. One-on-one with Etheridge. What a save! Welcome into the first ever MSN All-State Media Day for girls soccer. Jonathan Turner alongside Dan Stickrat. Ball comes in, a good head! 1-0! Shot, another save from Etheridge! Rebound, and it goes in the back of the net. The Bulldogs up 1-0! Burzma, but then for Vlasma! 3-0! Stewart Heiss with a shot! Upper 90 and in! Effectively today here on the Michigan Soccer Network, we are launching our new division of player recruitment videos. Mario Canoe now finds Stock. Finds Stock's got a left-footed banger. He shoots it, and it's in! The Red Hawks equalize! Well, good morning. Welcome here to MSN Live. We're live in MSN Studios in Shelby Township, Michigan. Jonathan Turner, Mr. Dan Stickrat, and Dan, hey, it's been an exciting time at the Michigan Soccer Network, and I mean, last week we had Alexi Lawless on the show. It's been a fun time.
You know, you have spoken about getting some other special guests up here in the upcoming months, so look forward to who you might lure on air.
We are going to lure, I think, a lot of people on air. We are in conversations with a lot of different people here from around the country, soccer analysts and former soccer players for the U.S. men's national team, women's national team. We've got a lot of things really here in the mix, and we're excited. We're excited about it. But hey, if it's your first time stopping by, all we ask is that you subscribe, you like this, and share this with your friends and family, and keep coming back for more. A lot more content coming your way. The Detroit City FC recap show that launched here last night. Tried it. What the heck? Why not do it on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday morning just to see? But that's available right now on our YouTube channel. So hey, at the conclusion of this show, go over and watch that, and check that out, because Neil Rule and I, we put some time and effort into that every week. He shows up here in the studio with me, and we work together for about 25 minutes. It's one take. We don't do extra takes of that, Dan. I don't know if anyone realizes that. That is, we legitimately just do that in one. In one take. It's, we some mistakes or not, doesn't really matter. We just do it one time.
There's no one standing in the corner with one of those old wood pieces that snap together.
They call that a clapper in the business. They call that a clapper, just so everybody knows. But no, there is nobody with a clapper. It's me and Neil here in studio. We recorded yesterday morning at 8:30 a.m. yesterday morning, and hey, we talked about Detroit City FC and what they're 3-0, everybody, in the USL Championship, and they've never done that in this league. They've never been 3-0. They've done it in what Neil has said is dominant fashion. They have done a great job of being gritty. All right, Detroit is known for being a gritty town. I know that the word gritty came out about this season of the Lions, but Detroit's always been known for its grittiness. When you look back in the early 2000s, the Pistons, right? You think about that team, right? Think about the Bad Boys, right? Back in the 90s, right? Hey, Detroit Pistons had no business being the Lakers back in 2004, right? No business. They beat them. We're talking about like the best basketball players of all time, basically on that court, right?
Found a way.
Kobe Bryant, right, and Shaquille O'Neal, right? You're talking about the top players of the game at their time. Detroit Pistons Won in what, 5 games?
Yeah, remember the old commercials we used to see? It was put on the old hard hat. We're going to work. We're the Pistons.
That's right. Going to work. And remember that horn, the horn that starts your shift. Is that at the infamous horn, the manufacturing horn, of getting things going. And they had, I can't tell you how many sellouts in a row at the Palace of Auburn Hills during that time. But gritty. The Detroit sports teams as a whole are always known as being gritty. The Verlander days of the Tigers, right? When you talk about what they were able to do. Joe Zamaya, remember that guy? He had the reliever who had a 105-mile-an-hour fastball. He threw his arm out, I think, playing with his kids in the backyard. But, just think about that team. Curtis Granderson, right? And Miguel Cabrera and just all the Maglio Ordonez, that walk-off home run, in the ALCS to get them to the World Series, right? Remember that Dan Dickerson call? That was a gritty team. Gritty team. Detroit's known for being gritty. Not just the Lions, but Detroit as a whole.
Even with, over the last several decades, Detroit, really the state of Michigan's, they've lost some of its, factories and industry, so to speak. But there still is a lot out there, and there are still a lot of communities where that's the way of life. It is blue collar. It is hardworking.
No question.
And you still see that in a lot of sports teams.
Well, and Dan, I mean, you talk about the grittiness. We're talking about Detroit City FC. They won 2-1 over Indy 11 here this past week. They're currently sitting second in the Eastern Conference standings in the USL Championship. They're 3-0. They've won every game from coming from behind. Every game. Right? In Colorado, they went down. Right? Came back, scored 2 unanswered goals, won that game. And they're doing it late. They're not even you think about this, they're doing it late. At Keyworth Stadium, they went down the 14th minute, 13th minute to Loudoun United. And they came back and won that game where Maxi Rodriguez, late in that game, scores a goal, gets them up. And then you look at what they did against Indy 11. Again, they went down in that game. I believe it was the 24th minute they went down in that game. Came back and scored a goal. Ali Coot, gets a goal. And I think it was in the 55th minute. And then in the 88th minute, Maxi Rodriguez, off a free kick, puts one home. Detroit City FC is now 3-0. Nate Steinwasser standing on his head, not once, not twice, but 3 times in that game. All 3 of those saves that he made in that game. Brilliant saves, and arguably would have been, would have gone in, obviously, especially that corner kick one early in the second half. Talk about and Neil talks about this, and it's 100% true, Detroit City FC fans, 100% true. Nate Steinwasser is a diamond in the rough. He is a gem that you want to hang on to, and at some point in time, a team in the MLS is going to go, this is something we should give a chance to, and when they do, he is going to be gone.
He's just one of those players that gets better and better.
He is so, and he doesn't, and we talk about it. He doesn't have those attributes of a goalkeeper, and there's another goalkeeper that I remember this, when I first got started in this, Dan, there was a goalkeeper named Cam Verona. And he played here locally for the Rebels FC side, and I had a chance to watch him play. I don't know his height. I think he's like 5'10", okay? He had tremendous range and made unbelievable saves. He has all the attributes you'd want as a goalkeeper minus his height. And that's the one thing that at the next level, coaches are afraid of. They're afraid of the goalkeeper who doesn't have the height. They want that goalkeeper, even if he can't make the same amount of saves or the same types of saves that 5'10" goalkeeper can make. They want the goalkeeper who's 6'5", who's got a range, that probably 12 feet, and that's what they want. And it makes them feel more comfortable. It makes them feel warm inside. You're not going to get that feeling when you see a Nate Steinwasser, But Nate Steinwasser is going to show up on game day, and he's going to do what he does best, which is keep the ball to the back of the net and keep your team in it until the very end. And that's what he does. And we keep seeing that time and time again, And hey, if DCFC's defense was worse, he'd have 30 saves right now. You know what I mean? He's not. He's got a good defense in front of him, so he's not seeing a ton of shots. But the shots he is seeing, he's making the saves. He's allowed 3 goals in 3 games, averaging just 1 goal a game.
And a a lot of people may or not realize this, but he's a local product.
Yeah.
He is one of 5 first cousins, the Steinwasser cousins, who played at Utica Ford. I believe he went to Division II University of Indianapolis. He wasn't some, huge Division I recruit coming out of the MLS Next Developmental Academy cycle. He is one of those hardworking kids that just got better and better, and he keeps climbing the ladder.
He has done a fantastic job in the net for DCFC, and you can't say enough about that. And go to our YouTube channel, watch the Detroit City FC recap show. It premieres every single week here on MSN. Neil Rule and I, we host that show together. Neil Rule, the host of, the voice of Detroit City FC, has been that way now for many, many years. He does a fantastic job. I do have to say this, though, Dan. Neil is the director of broadcasting in Oakland. And I love Neil. I kind of hated him yesterday, though. I will say I kind of hated him yesterday. So, and here's the reason why. Okay, so obviously all of you know Oakland men's basketball team. They did a fantastic thing. They beat Kentucky here in the first round of the tournament. They lost to NC State. In the round of 32. To be fair, they have given NC State the hardest look so far in this tournament. NC State's now in the Final Four. Not common. You see an 11 seed making its way all the way down to the Final Four, but they've done it. And hey, that put Oakland University on the map. It put them on the map. And what happens with that is now Neil is getting pulled in a couple of different directions because of that. And so, yesterday the men's baseball team had a game scheduled. The Campy radio show, usually which takes place on Monday nights, took place last night. So Neil called me last week and said, "Hey, John, can you do the baseball game on Tuesday against Bowling Green?" I said, I think I can do that. He's like, it's going to be canceled. It's supposed to rain for like Monday to Friday of next week. It's not going to happen. Matter of fact, any game in March or early April just is always canceled. So, chances are the thing's going to get canceled. So I got a phone call from my bosses at Oakland on Monday night, Dan. They called me and said, "Hey, John, we're going to let you know about this game tomorrow. We're going to let you either know tonight or tomorrow morning if we're going to cancel this thing." I said, "Okay, no worries. We're cool. Let me know." Neil comes in yesterday morning, came in here to the studio. It's 8:30 in the morning. We're sitting here talking. We're kind of just going back and forth a little bit. And he's like, "John," he's like, "Oh yeah, there's no way they're playing this. There's no way they're playing the game. Don't worry about it, John. You're good, right?" And 45 minutes later, I get a text message from Oakland. They're like, "Game is on. Like, be there pitching. It's like 2:30. First pitch. Be ready." And I'm like, "Oh no. Like, because to be fair, since Neil had kind of laid the groundwork, I didn't do any prep work at all, Dan. Normally, I am like in full prep, but I was like, "Hey, you know what, man? And shame on me, for not doing my prep. But it didn't really matter about my prep. And the reason why it didn't matter is as soon as I got to the game, and for those of you that don't know, Oak University, they have fantastic facilities, but the one thing that they lack in the outdoor sports is they don't have a really nice, warm and cozy press box for commentators. They have a warm and cozy press box for their PA announcer, Kevin Beer, a great guy, by the way, and their team there. But for the broadcasters, we're like the all-weather broadcasters at Oakland when it comes to outside sports. And so we're outside, perched up on this nice little kind of like press box thing, Dan, and there's rain coming from all angles. Yesterday's rain was like the rain that Forrest Gump talked about in Forrest Gump, right? Where it's like sideways, upways. It was coming from everywhere yesterday. It didn't matter. It was coming from everywhere. It was swirling around. Terrible rain. And so my prep work that I did do in about an hour yesterday was all ruined before the first pitch even happened. So all my notes are all ripped and wet and soggy. So I'm sitting there. It's 41 degrees outside. And it was a consistent, like, sleety rain from the moment I got there till the moment the power went out in the 5th inning of the broadcast. We're on ESPN Plus. The power went out in the 5th inning and then got back up, got back on, and then it went out again in the 6th inning. Dan, they had scored a combined 29 runs. So from the standpoint of, 29 runs. But either way, I said this to Neil yesterday. I had a text message that I said, I sent this emoji of Jack Nicholson frozen because that's what I'm still cold after yesterday's event. I love you, Neil, but yesterday I did not love you as much as I do normally.
It was one of those situations yesterday. You know, the old memes you see on social media. Michigan, hold my beer. You know.
Oh, it was terrible, man.
I mean, there was a lot of girls' high school soccer games last night, like soccer and lacrosse games that were played around the state of Michigan, in the pouring rain. This is one of those things. It's April. You've lived here your whole life. You grow accustomed. This is just going to happen every year.
Yeah. Hey, some new things on our screen here today. At the bottom of your screen, we've got our new flipper, and that flipper is going to talk about scores. It's going to have not only MHSA scores, it's going to also have I think I spelled MHSA right. If I didn't, I might have to check that. But either way, it's got your scores there at the bottom of the screen. And I spelled MHSA wrong, Dan. Look at that. I just realized that I've done this quite a bit now in my time, realizing that these scores are, probably, but either way, I just updated it, so it'll correct itself here in a moment. But your scores from yesterday and this week are on your screen from not only the MHSA, but also USL Championship. Hey, the Michigan Stars won yesterday, 2-0 over Minnesota United FC 2 in Minnesota. And then now they're on to the third round of the U.S. Open Cup. So kudos to the Michigan Stars. I know how much Detroit City FC hates the Michigan Stars. We know that. We are well aware of that. I've heard it because we've had Michigan Stars comments about some things in the broadcast. So we know that. But you know what? They're moving on to the next round, so good for them. A lot of cool things that are happening. So that flipper, we'll talk about the high school scores, players who scored goals based on information that's provided to us. We'll talk about a lot of that here throughout the show today. It is 39 degrees outside here in Michigan, and Dan, we joke around a lot about about the weather here because it's fun to do. It's Michigan, but it's cold outside and it's raining. Rain is expected to be here throughout much of the day and the rest of the week. And hopefully it will be gone by Friday when I do a girls softball game at Oakland at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But we got a lot more on MSN Live coming our way. We're going to get into some of the scores from yesterday's girls soccer, high school girls soccer. We'll talk more about the Michigan Stars and their victory here over Minnesota United FC, more Detroit City FC, and much more here. You're watching MSN Live on the Michigan Soccer Network. We'll be right back. Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's going to go in!
Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
Are you looking to play at the next level? MSN is now offering player recruitment videos. We are excited to partner with you and your family in getting you to the next level. To learn more about our packages and what we offer, head over to the MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Remember, your journey starts with a click.
What rhymes with great?
Participate.
Where does greatness start? Here, in the classroom.
On the diamond.
In the pool. On the field.
Where will your greatness take you?
To better grades.
To more friends.
Yeah! Be great.
Participate!
And welcome back here in MSN Studios here on this Wednesday, April the 3rd. That's right, April the 3rd. It's officially April. Easter Sunday was this past week. High schools from around the state of Michigan have returned from spring break, and others are on spring break this week. I know this because my wife, she wanted to fly to Florida this weekend, Dan. She gets a long weekend, and sometimes she likes to just take a weekend for herself and fly to Florida, see her sisters in West Palm Beach. And flights this weekend were insane. So she's not going to Florida because of spring break. So thank you to all those spring breakers out there for making my wife's weekend not the way she wanted it. Because she needs her son, man. She needs her son. She needs that son. She's from Brazil, and she loves her son. Some sad news here, Dan, that happened and this involved my wife. So some sad news that happened to our family here on Monday. And Dan, I didn't talk to you about this. Maybe I did talk to you about it, but for those of you that have had a chance to, have a Zoom call with me, a business Zoom call, or any type of a phone call when I'm at home, my home office is actually in the master bedroom. My wife and I, we've decided that that's the best place for me to have my office away from the rest of the family, which is fine. But anyways, in our master bedroom, we have our pet parakeet, Blue. And Blue is a bird that we gave to my wife last year for her birthday. She very much had been asking for a bird. We'd gotten some birds here a number of years ago, and they had passed away. And I'd gotten her this with the kids. We went out and got the cage, got all the stuff for it. Really exciting time, to get her what she wanted. And Blue was our new household pet, and it sits up in the bedroom, and we open the blinds up. The thing just starts to chirp, 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 and it's exciting, and it's annoying. It's all those things and more. I didn't take care of said bird. I just opened the blinds so he could get the sun and sing to all of his birdie friends out in the wild, right? So whatever you want to call it.
Did Blue have a favorite song?
I don't think so. Okay. I don't know. Maybe me yelling. I don't know. At the kids to stop doing whatever they were doing wrong. But anyways, I on Monday morning before I left to come here, my wife had mentioned that he was acting a little weird, acting a little strange, and it was very I didn't notice anything different, but But anyways, I come home Monday afternoon after having our meetings here, going home, and I go open the blinds, and because I hadn't opened them in the morning, and Blue was laying down at the bottom of the cage, not moving. Part of me thought maybe it was an April Fool's joke, that maybe that Blue had been like, I'm going to fake my thing. Maybe I open the cage, he flies out, and he's off on his own. He's flying away. That wasn't the case.
No conspiracy theory.
Huh? No. Blue was gone. And it's one of those things where, unfortunately, birds like this, they don't tend to oftentimes show they're going to die, and then they just die. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I called my wife and be like, hey, Blue's no longer with us. Right. Zoe, who when it comes to Zoe, Nathan and Brianna, my two oldest, they didn't seem bothered by it. Zoe, she was crying and sad. So she wanted me to bury Blue in the backyard. I'm like, I'm not gonna go bury Blue in the backyard. We're gonna dispose of Blue in another way. But either way, it's just it's one of those things where it's like you want to the dog, you can tell when he's sick a little bit, and you can take the dog to the vet. Birds like Blue, they don't. Because of the way that they are in the wild, I guess birds have this natural thing where they don't, when they show that they're finally sick, it's like it's too late, is my understanding. I just researched why did he die? He'd look fine. But they say that these birds, they just tend to, because of their ability to, they want to obviously not show weakness in the wild. They don't want to make anyone think that they're sick. So they hold off this whole thing to keep themselves from being seen as weak, and then they die. So Chikabowski, condolences about your bird. You're my bird Blue. You guys continue to grow with new features, entertaining, informative. Wow, thanks for what you're doing, Al. Go Ike. Well, we appreciate that, Al, very, very much. Eisenhower had a big game here yesterday. We can talk about that. They actually, it's on your screen. Eisenhower beat Stevenson Sterling Heights Stevenson 7-0 yesterday. Eisenhower was really good last year. It came down to the Romeo game at the very end of that season last year. Romeo ended up, I believe, winning it, if I'm not mistaken.
And that forced Eisenhower and Anchor Bay to share the crown, right?
Yeah, I think So Eisenhower, there was. I have to look back. I don't. Again, maybe I'm misspeaking here, but I remember the game ended in a tie, and that tie benefited either Eisenhower or Anchor Bay. But hey, Marin Smith had a hat trick yesterday, and Elira, I can't pronounce her name. Is it Elira Jakubowski? And I know we've had this from before. Ike won the red last year, so thank you. Elra Jakubowski had 2 goals. She's a sophomore. She had a great season last year.
Remember, they had 6 freshmen on varsity that started or came off the bench, and I heard 2 of those girls actually, unfortunately, will be missing the season due to knee injuries. But
Dan, just step in front of the microphone a little bit more.
Yeah, Eisenhower is always a good team. I mean. And that's something I'll throw a couple cents in for is, I've had conversations with a ton of high school coaches the last 2 or 3 weeks across the state. And, you just look locally, like within 10, 15 miles of our office here in Shelby Township. Utica Eisenhower's really good. Romeo has come out of nowhere in the last decade. They're very good. The 3 Rochester schools, are very good. Utica is going to be really good this year. But at the end of the day, only one of those schools is going to play your interregional game come June.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. You go to other parts of the state, Grand Rapids, you go out to the western suburbs in Ann Arbor area, Plymouth Canton schools, Livonia schools, out there in Walled Lake, in that whole region, they're all crammed into 2 or 3 different districts. And that's just the way it is. And it hasn't changed any. I played high school soccer and club soccer back in the late 1980s, and it hasn't changed. There's still those power pockets. And, one coach told me 5-6 years ago, is like, well, we could win the league and we could be ranked all year, but if we don't win the state championship, it's kind of like a disappointment. And I don't really necessarily agree with that, because you could have a great season, but how many times have we seen, just in the sport of soccer, where you got 5 ranked teams in another school that's honorable mention in the polls in the same district? Any way you twist and turn it, only one team's going to escape. You hear the terms every year. There's always a couple, 2, 3 districts of death in the state of Michigan when it comes to boys soccer and girls soccer. But just because you don't win your district doesn't mean your season wasn't a success.
Yeah, I think that there's that misconception. But I also think that, again, and we've been talking about this probably for 2 or 3 decades. Either internally, within your group of teams, or as coaches, or anyone in the soccer community. The way that the MHSAA tournament is set up, I think is an injustice, for that exact point, Dan, right? We talk about that a lot. You got if they seeded the entire districts, you would see some upsets for sure. But the teams that are, that go into, like, we look at that Rochester, Adams, Eisenhower, Romeo district. You had Stony Creek in there last year with Rochester. If Rochester was in another district, those 2 teams don't see each other until regionals. And and is that, does that mean that maybe Rochester comes out of that with a victory? I mean, it took a penalty shootout last year, if I'm not mistaken, in that first round, right? Eisenhower and I know.
Stony beat Ike. I don't want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, 4-3. It was a final, but it went to PKs, and then Stony scored late against Romeo in the semis, and then you had Stony Creek and Rochester meeting that district final, and this just gives you a great example. I think they were ranked 2nd and 3rd in the state going into that game. Rochester was undefeated. Their last loss was in the semifinals back in 2022, and Stony Creek ended up escaping with a 1-goal, victory.
Yeah.
And to say that it wasn't a success for Rochester or for Romeo, even Adams had Adams was one of the youngest teams in all of Oakland and Macomb County combined. I mean, they had a lot of sophomores and freshmen that they gave minutes to last year. They're going to be, a lot better this year. Adams brings back quite a nice core to, its varsity side. And, and who's going to win that? Well, we'll see how the season plays out. There's always injuries, but, Eisenhower's made a few runs. All those schools have won districts in the last decade.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple years ago, was it Romeo upset Stony Creek in a district final?
Yeah, and again, we can talk about that until the cows come home, so to speak. Right. About just and again, we can argue the better team should beat the other better team, right? I mean, that's really how it should be, right? I mean, if you got our number 2 ranked team versus number 3 ranked team, I mean, number 2 should beat number 3. I guess that's the argument. But again, I think it's, if you look at like the NCAA tournament, right? Oak University had no business being Kentucky. From a seeding standpoint, right? There's a reason why you seed teams 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 16, because you want the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s to beat the 16 team, those later seeds, so that there's a more competitive tournament as you get towards the national championship. If you're the tournament, like you're in charge of doing all this seeding, you want the number 1 teams in the Final Four. Right. I mean, I granted you obviously want a lot of different potential, over upsets and things like that, because that creates obviously some Cinderella type stories. But you want the best teams to be there at the end. That's what you want.
And upsets.
Yeah, upsets are going to happen, but I think that
sports upsets happen in all sports and all levels.
Yeah, but what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have and again this does happen. We see it every time, all the time in the districts, specifically districts in the early stages of regionals. You'll have these brutal districts where Rochester versus Stony Creek versus Eisenhower, these really good teams are facing off early in playoffs, and they get beat up. And then you go up and get played against a squad that comes out of maybe the Flint Metro district sides where, hey, they had to play 3 easy opponents to get and they win a district. And then they come out of it and they get smoked by an Anchor Bay team. They get smoked by, an Eisenhower or a Stony Creek in that first round of regionals. And they might even see it again in the next round, in the regional finals, and then the semifinals a little bit closer. It's just, that's the one thing about the high school soccer game that we'd like to see, we talked about, that we'd like to see seeding throughout the entire round of districts. And is it possible? Who knows? I guess it all comes down to scheduling and distances, but it's just one of those things, Dan, where is it an injustice to the game? I don't know if it's an injustice, but I definitely think that it could make the game a lot better.
And I would like to see seeding throughout the entire districts and regional. And, I understand in northern Michigan there's only so many schools and they're already far apart, so it's kind of hard to have a team from Harbor Springs go down and play a team from Kalamazoo in a district. But, in the Detroit and like Grand Rapids area, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, it's a 40-minute drive along 131. So, it's not that far to break some of these districts up a little bit. Because let's be honest, you can go back throughout the last 20, 30 years and look at the tournament brackets, and some schools, and I'm not taking anything away from the talent they have in the field, but they have an easier pathway to win a district and maybe get to a regional, semi, or regional final than others. I mean, it's some school, and it's not their fault. This is where they're placed. The MHSA, this is the way they've done their tournaments for over 100 years in every sport. They do it geographically. But, there's been discussion for at least 20 years about, changing the way things are done. And they finally got seeding involved here with a lot of their sports in the last 5 or 6 years. That's a step in the right direction. But are there more improvements that can be made?
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, hey, at the bottom of your screen, still rolling across there, Troy Athens beat Royal Oak yesterday 4-0. Lauren Dionker, Emily Mendrick, Hannah Dombrowski, and Sydney McBride all scored goals yesterday for Troy Athens. Goodrich falls to Oxford at home yesterday. Fraser falls to Berkeley at home. Rochester Adams beat OA white opponent Clarkston 6-0. That was a home game for them. Again, Clarkston was in the red, now in the white. Hey, Minnesota United FC, again, lost yesterday at home, U.S. Open Cup second round game. Michigan Stars, Michigan Stars, you've got Sako Kanate headed it past MLS goalkeeper Clint Irwin in the 100th minute. Michigan then scored an insurance goal in the 107th minute. And that's how that game finished. India 11 falling to Detroit City FC 2-1 on Saturday at Michael Carroll Stadium in Indiana. Ali Coote and Maxi Rodriguez getting the goals for them. So those are your score roundups here on MSN Live this morning. They don't go anywhere. We got a great conversation continuing here on the Michigan Soccer Network. Hey, if you haven't had a chance to head over to Granite City lately, you should. I was there for Easter brunch this Sunday. Man, their brunch was fantastic. And if you're family, which I imagine a lot of you watching or tuning in have kids or maybe have family, they now have, or will have this weekend, a special kids menu. Chicken fingers, macaroni and cheese. I mean, you can't go wrong with chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese. At least I don't think you can. But
what? They do have a great chicken pot pie there. Anyone that's been to one of the
That's right.
One of the Granite Cities, because there are two here in the Metro Detroit area. I love that chicken pot pie.
That's right. So Granite City Food and Brewery, located both in Northfield and Troy. For more information, head over to gcfb.com. That's Granite City Food and Brewery. Don't go anywhere. We're right back.
Are you looking to take your game to the next level? Did you know that MSN is now offering player recruitment videos? Our packages include a player profile where you show your preferred positions, the club, the league, or school that you play in, your current coach contact information, and more. The highlight videos could be self-submitted, 15 to 30 clips that will be put into a 3 to 7 minute long video. Video review of your Huddle, VO, or other platforms that you might have video on, as well as for an additional charge, MSN can come out and film games for you to create those clips. Our coach evaluation process, which is also an additional charge, where we have college coaches from various levels across the United States that will review your game film and provide feedback on how to improve that film, as well as also evaluating your play and what you can improve on. To learn more about our packages and what we offer, head over to the MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Remember, your journey starts with a click.
And welcome back here into our MSN studios, Shelby Township, Michigan. It is 10:37 a.m. here on Wednesday, April the 3rd. Jonathan Turner, Dan Stickrad, and you know, Dan, I just got a text message from my son. I got to give him some love. He just texted me. I don't know why he's texting me. He's in school. He's supposed to not be texting me, but he's just like sent me a picture of his grades. All A's right now. So I'm gonna brag a little bit. All A's.
Proud papa moment. Right?
Proud papa moment. Still do the dishes when you get home, though, buddy.
Yeah.
It's one of the areas we struggle in as a family. Is just doing the simple chores that are required of us. But, hey, it is 41 degrees outside. It is a toasty, and I mean toasty, 60 degrees in here right now. And maybe it's closer to 80, actually, I feel like. But I know I set it to 68. But it might be closer to 75 in here. It's getting warm, Dan, here in our studios in Shelby Township. But hey, if you're just joining us, we talk a lot of things here this morning, MSN Live. Last week, we had Alexi Lawless on the air. We're working on, and that was a great interview. I think he had a lot to talk about with the U.S. men's national team and what we talked about as far as expectations about whether pretty soccer matters. And at the end of the day, Dan, what the scoreboard says at the end is the most important part. And if you're the one that's got more goals than the other team, I guess it doesn't really matter how well you played or not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you won. I think, though, it's our job in the media, Dan, right, is at least my perspective is, and this is where I think Alexi falls into it as well. When you start talking about analyzing games, if you win ugly all the time, people are going to ask if you're for real or not. You know what I mean? Look at the Lions this past year for us. How many people here watching the Detroit Lions this season were waiting for the shoe to fall off the foot, waiting for the train to go off the track, so to speak? I mean, I think we were all waiting. Are they for real?
Yeah, you saw it on social media. You heard from friends. They were waiting for the same old Lions to come back, but it didn't really happen.
No,
they lost some games, but you know what? In the NFL, no one.
Well, you can't. I mean, you just can't win them all. I mean, obviously there are teams that can, and they have, but does ugly matter? Does ugly wins? At the end of the day, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, if you could find ways just to win games, and that's where the grit comes into it. I think at some point in time, we in the soccer community are going to have to just say, okay, well, it compromise our expectations for results. And just say throw out what we think a win should look like, as long as it's a win. A win's a win. And right now, if you're a Detroit Red Wing fan, I mean, you were in a position here 4 weeks ago to make the playoffs. And I haven't looked at their thing recently, but my guess is it's very grim. They have not done well here in the last month. And getting a victory right now who cares how big or how ugly it would be? Getting a win gets you closer to a playoff. That's what you want. Get into the playoff. Be one of the last teams in the league, right? Get into that playoff spot. Something the Red Wings have struggled to do here. We were so accustomed to them going every single year, and then now they haven't gone in many years. So a win is a win. Whether how ugly or how, doesn't matter how you get it. A win's a win. But yeah, I mean, hey, high school girls soccer has been showing up again. It's full force, is what I would say right now. You got games happening all over the place. These games didn't make it into our flipper at the bottom of your screen, but let's take a look at some of the scores here from yesterday. Bloomfield Hills beat Birmingham Groves 2-0 last night. Bloomfield Hills Roper lost to Clawson 2-1. Carlton Airport beat Ida 9-1, Dan. Now, I think that might be expected for that one. Dearborn Fordson loses to Dearborn 6-1. Detroit Western and Lutheran Westland. That game was a 1-1 tie. And, Eaton Rapids beat Fowlerville 5-0. Farmington Milford beat Farmington 8-0. Genesee Christian beat Flint Carmen Ainsworth 8-0 up in the. Now, is that Flint Metro?
No, Genesee Christian's in the Genesee Area Conference, but
okay.
There's only a couple schools in that league that have soccer, and then Flint Carmen Ainsworth is in the Saginaw Valley League.
Heartland beat Howell 8-0. Ann Arbor Pioneer beat Jackson 8-0. Lansing Waverly beat Lansing Eastern 8-0. Livonia Churchill and Livonia Franklin draw 2-2. Livonia Stevenson lost to Belleville yesterday. That's a big one because that's a KLA West matchup
East
there.
Matchup, yeah.
East matchup. And Belleville and Livonia Stevenson, those two teams were fighting for the KLA East last year. Belleville ended up winning it last year. I think it was the first time in school history.
Yeah, it's the first time since they joined the KLA that they had won a league championship. They may have won one years ago in the old Mega Conference, which, went away about 10, 15 years ago. There used to be like 3 or 4 divisions in that, but Belleville has come on really strong here in the last 4 or 5 years. Coaching staff has done a great job with the Tigers.
So Northville and Canton tied yesterday. That's a big one. You've got River. Well, that didn't play. That was actually did not happen here. Parmer Western and Leslie tied. Plymouth and Brighton. Brighton won 2-1 yesterday. Just a lot of scores. Saline beat Grosse Seal 5-0. St. John's lost to Grand Ledge 3-1. Traverse City Central beat Saginaw Heritage 6-0. West Bloomfield lost to Holly yesterday 4-1. So, and Walled Lake Northern beat Walled Lake Western 2-0. So, those are some high school scores here from around the state of Michigan. This last one, Ypsilanti Prep lost to Ypsilanti Lincoln yesterday 4-2. So, those are your score roundups from around the MHSAA. Here on the Michigan Soccer Network. Any scores there stick out to you there, Dan?
I believe Canton and Northville tied.
Yep.
They're supposed to be two of the best teams in that KLAA West. That's going to be another conference. It'll be an absolute gauntlet, as it is, every fall and every spring. And there's just so many quality teams in that league, and because I think when it comes to certain sports, those leagues are balanced. I think obviously the West is much deeper in soccer than the East Division, although Belleville, Mavonie, Stevenson are supposed to be fairly good this year, and Dearborn's had some good teams in recent years, so we'll see how it all shakes out. But last night again, it was pouring rain between 6 and 9 o'clock at night all over Michigan, so it's hard to say if if all those teams came back later this week and it was sunny out and the turf or the field was dry, we might see a slightly different result. And then a lot of these schools just came off of spring break, so a lot of these kids weren't practicing for a week and a half together. So, sometimes scores when it's in the rain, it's not indicative, but sometimes it is. Sometimes these teams are just that much better than their opposition.
No question about that. Hey, first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button, like us, and share us with your friends and family. We're available right now live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter here this Wednesday morning. Hey, coming up here on Sunday, a big time ranking show here. The first rankings of the season coming here this Sunday night, April the 7th. Our ranking show begins at 8 p.m. Eastern here on the Michigan Soccer Network. Dan and I will host that show live from our MSN studios here on Sunday night. And hey, that's the top 15 teams from around the state in each division. And those young ladies have been competing here for the last two and a half weeks or so. And hey, these rankings are what they are when they first come out, Dan, right? We talk about this a lot, and those first rankings sometimes are head scratchers, because you'll have teams who have yet to play a game or maybe have a losing record who are in the top 15, and there are teams out there that maybe are 3-0, maybe undefeated in their first couple games of the season, and people are kind of going, scratching their head, like, why aren't we ranked? We're undefeated. There's a team up in the UP or up north that hasn't played a single game yet. They're ranked. And the answer to that question is there's a lot of different answers, actually, right, Dan? There's a lot of I think a lot of it has to do with communication. All right, it comes down to the way the ranking system works. And for those of you that don't know, we'll give you kind of a little insight into how the rankings work. From the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. We are just the voice, the mouthpiece, so to speak, of those rankings. We do not actually create the rankings. But, there's a lot of different pieces to that puzzle, Dan. There is what you're doing in regards to how you're scheduling your games, because NPR is a thing. NPR today, it means something. If you know what the NPR is, that is the rankings. That's how the state of Michigan, based on strength of schedule, strength of your opponents and their opponents, like opponents, all those things create a formula that determines how you should be ranked. And those rankings matter when it comes to districts. So it's not so much important how. Sometimes it does not matter how well you play against the weaker teams. It's how well you play against the stronger teams, and how those teams will play against other teams of like strength, and all that matters come district seeding time. That is a factor in the rankings, from our understanding. Another factor is what you're doing for us lately, right? You're winning, losing, all those things. It also matters whether or not your coach is communicating with you. And the state of Michigan, as far as the Coaches Association, there are division chairs in each division, and those chairs, they rely heavily on information from other coaches, and those coaches find out information. And if you're not sharing your team, the likelihood of you getting ranked diminishes, especially if you're a team that isn't known for being a good team, or isn't known maybe historically for being a strong team. And there are a lot of teams that fit into that kind of mold, where look at Belleville, for example. Belleville is a team that had not won a KLA East division in their school history up until last year. And they're a team that probably, if their coach wasn't really promoting them and having conversations, there's a team that probably would fall by the wayside from a ranking standpoint, Dan. And they were ranked last year. They got in the rankings, I believe, a couple of times last year.
Yeah, they were in and out of the rankings, or honorable mention.
So, but again, you think about that. If Joe Zarco, their head coach, was not, in the ear of other coaches, and that KLA East and KLA West, those KLA, that overall conference is a powerhouse conference. There's a ton of teams in it. Northville, Novi, Brighton, Canton, Plymouth. I mean, the list can go on. So a lot of those teams are going to be ranked just because of their history, and nothing to do with what they're doing for us lately. Look at the OAA Red. Rochester Adams, Stony Creek, Rochester. You look at those three schools, they have been powerhouse girls soccer teams for decades. So the likelihood of them being ranked is pretty high. So in order for you to get ranked above an Athens, above a Northville or a Novi, like look at Romeo. Romeo was ranked last year, right? Romeo is another team that has been very, very good. Eisenhower, they were in and out of the rankings last year. But if you're not fighting for it, if your coach is not reaching out to the division chair and giving them a mouthful or an earful, whatever you want to call it, you're not going to get ranked. You're gonna miss out. And some people say, well, what do rankings even matter? In the scheme of things, they probably don't matter, right? I mean, Dan, let's be honest, did they matter? I think as a former player, being ranked to me was huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a motivational factor. As you're a 16-year-old high school athlete, you're playing your sport of choice, and you look at your schedule, and then you got 5 ranked teams you're going to play in the next month. It's a great motivator. Hey, we want to knock off a couple state ranked teams.
Yeah,
and there are always coaches out there that I don't want to be ranked, so I'm not gonna suggest that we are. And sometimes those teams fall through the cracks. Sometimes everyone knows who they are, and they're going to be ranked regardless. And there are teams out there that have high expectations because they did so well last year, but they get off to a slow start. Their best player, tears an ACL, and then we talked about having losing records early in the season. Sometimes those schools will end up falling out of the rankings, and sometimes they come back, for various reasons. They get kids back from injury. Maybe they had a player or two that at the beginning of the season was still playing on their club team and decided to come out in the end of April to, join their high school roster. There's a lot of factors. But there are some coaches out there in boys soccer and girls soccer who play that card. Well, I don't want to be ranked. I'm not going to send my stuff into my divisional chair. I want to fly under the radar. But in today's era where your scores are all online, there's all kinds of social media. You're not going to be able to hide too long.
Yeah. No, and it's great points. Dan, we talk about this a lot, internally, not so much out into the world. Dan is writing stories, feature stories and recaps, and he's doing his news thing, right? He's doing his writing. That's why we brought him on board. And there is going to be moments, during our growth where, we're going to miss a team, right? We're not going to catch a score. We're maybe going to miss misspell a name. Things are going to happen, right? And as part of growth happens, and we talk about this a lot, Dan. As part of growth happens, that's when people are going to start to recognize, hey, an error or a mistake, or going to recognize things. I think that everything, and this is why this is important. When we talk about the rankings, right? Is that we talk about this a lot, Dan, when it comes to like the coaches and athletic directors and just all these different components within the sports. Is that there are good or great coaches, great athletic, great people who work at these schools who are constantly trying to give their kids, their teams exposure. The more exposure, the better, right? That's their school of thought. That's their mindset. And then there are teams out there that don't care about the exposure. And maybe it has nothing to do with, wanting to or not wanting to. It's just maybe they don't care. There's the very bottom of that kind of spectrum. And then there's a bunch of people in between there that are kind of a variation of all those things. And there are teams out there that aren't going to get the exposure because no one's being, their spokesperson. I'm not a person to go out there and tell you parents, go be the spokesperson for your school. I'm not saying that. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it should be a parent. It should be a coach, it should be an athletic director, it should be somebody on the coaching staff. It should be somebody within the school, an employee. It should not be parents. And you want to know why? Because it's emotional. Your kid's on the team. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, go out and have and be a spokesperson on some level to get your kids exposure. But if you're talking about giving your school team exposure, your club team exposure, your amateur team exposure, it can't come from a parent. Because, us in the media, we're not probably going to give it the same kind of weight if it's coming from a coach. It's like I carry the same weight. So if you want your team to have exposure, be the spokesperson for the parents. Go to your coach and maybe you have to demand it. Yeah. You demand that your kids get exposure, because there are coaches out there, and we don't need to name teams or schools, but there are coaches out there that have phenomenal teams. They don't want the radar. They want to be off the radar. They want to be off the grid. They don't want the exposure. They don't want people looking at them going, wow, they're really good. We want them to come by surprise. Now, in 1992, that probably was more likely to happen. But in 2024, as a coach, if you don't want your kids to have exposure, you're not a good coach.
And
so I'm going to say it right now, you're not a good coach, because a coach should want his kids exposed in the sense of getting access to the media, getting access to college coaches, the whole 9 yards. If you are not out there actively trying to build relationships with college coaches, with the media, to give your kids the opportunity to get more exposure, which creates more opportunity for them, then shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, like, the last few weeks, we've done a lot of background work. We're trying to put together our Super 50, 50 really good teams. We're trying to put together profiles, especially in D3 and D4, some of the top 15, 20 teams to watch. We're doing our huge player ranking, top players, and there's going to be several hundred players on that list. But we sent out 3 rounds of emails. We're not sending any more out. Every AD in the state has had these copies of these, their secretaries. We sent a couple hundred of these surveys directly to the head coaches. We've had 2 head coaches at Class A Division I schools literally block our emails. And that's your choice. If you don't want to participate, that's fine. But what's ironic is you hear about people complaining at the end of the season. Well, my kid's going to this college, or he had 33 goals and she had 26 assists, but they were only all conference and they were way down on my all district list. They should have been all state. Well, what did you do to promote them over the previous 3 months? Were you reporting your scores and game wraps to a bunch of websites and newspapers? Because there are a lot of athletic directors out there, as part of their contract of being a varsity head coach, you are supposed to deal with all media in your part of the state.
Well, Dan, as a coach at Birmingham Groves, it was with Tom Flynn,
right.
And you know what? My job was to have a good working relationship with the media, and I did. I made sure that I answered questions as quickly as I possibly could. There's a lot of things that we do that we did that I had to go above and beyond for in regards to the media. It was an expectation. It was required of me.
Right.
And again, being required or not, I remember I was reaching out to Michigan Soccer Central at that time. Now we are Soccer Central. I was reaching out to Dan Garnell saying, hey man, come to my games. I wanted my kids to get exposure to more. Because that meant that the kids coming behind them. Because when I went to, I'm not shy about this. I was a Troy Athens player. I graduated from Troy Athens High School. I was part of state championships. And any player who's come after me, as well as who was before me, knows the history of Troy Athens. They know that the second that they walk into that school, the expectation is to win championships. That's the expectation with Troy Athens soccer, whether you're on the boys or the girls side. Now you can't walk in every school and think that way because it's not the case. But at that school, that's what you're walking into.
Yeah, think years ago, like even before there was people had emails. Say it's the mid 1990s. Tim Storch was a legendary coach. You play for him at Troy Athens. Win, lose, or tie. After a game, he would call the Oaken Press. He would call the Daily Tribune, the Free Press, the News, the Observer and Eccentric, where I used to work for 15 years. They would call all that. They would send stuff to, I think there was a Troy Times in the city of Troy at one time. I'm not sure if that still exists. But, he did that. When he went to Alpena, and he just stepped down a year and a half ago from the boys team at Alpena, but he had lots of feature stories and game wraps in the Alpena News, evening news. Because that was the paper in his area. And, I did a feature story on his boys team a year and a half ago. Alpena had a really good boys team in fall of 2022, and I think they might have cracked the rankings or been honorable mention. But Tim Storch, all the years he coached, he went above and beyond. And there are a lot of coaches around the state who have no problem promoting their teams and the teams in their conference or their district. They're all about getting exposure for their team and the teams they compete against. But there are some coaches out there, unfortunately, they will never pick up a phone and answer an email to any newspaper or any website. They simply won't do it. And, at the end of the day, shame on them, shame on their athletics director for not putting a foot down. Like, we pay you. Part of your job as being a coach, varsity coach, is dealing with the media. It doesn't matter if it's a statewide website like ours, a weekly newspaper that only covers 3 high schools in their area of the state, a daily, M Live has 9 daily newspapers that feed into their system. All the coaches that fall underneath those coverage areas should have a working relationship, with the sports that are there and their freelancers. Because believe me, when it comes to football and boys and girls basketball, they do.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing, right? And I think part of this too is it's new, right? What we're talking about is new. There's never been the kind of coverage for boys and girls high school soccer, prior to MSN's existence. There just hasn't. And we're blazing a new trail here, Dan. Right? I'm not saying that there wasn't coverage, because there was coverage. You can go to the MI Prep Zone and see coverage, but to the level that we're talking about, like we're talking about a high school soccer, we're talking about this right now. We have scores on our screen. Give me one high school show outside of state champs that comes on Sunday mornings. It gives a 3-minute highlight reel of 3 games from around the state of Michigan. Aside from that, there's nothing else of its kind that's happening right now across the state of Michigan. We are that platform. And so it's new. So these coaches and athletics are just getting to know who we are. I still think there's probably a good chunk of people out there that don't know who MSN is, and that's fine. You will know, because you, the parents and the athletes, the players, the soccer players, doesn't matter who you are. You need to be in your athletic director's ears. You need to be in your in the coach's ears about getting more coverage and exposure to your teams. Period. Be the pressure. I'll tell you this right now. My booster clubs were in my face about a lot of things. Good, bad, or indifferent. I had conversations all the time with boosters. Now, not all booster clubs are created equal. Not all of them are going to be in your face. Some are school boosters, some are team boosters, some are whatever. But somebody within your program needs to go up to your head coach and say, hey, what are you doing with the media? Because we want our kids to. Now, again, not every school maybe wants that exposure, but I would like to think that 80% of soccer teams out there in the state want to have their kids talked about on some level. And we've made it easy for you. On our website alone, you can go to our website, MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Under MSN News, under the tab of MSN News, report your scores. What was your score last night? Tell us your scores. Come tell us what you did last night. Include who scored those goals. You can share your team information with us, Dan. Like literally share your team information with us. We have a form to fill that out. If you're college commit and you want to commit, you've committed to a college, there's a place for you to fill that out as well. I have created, I can't tell you how many places for you to interact and engage with MSN to give you the exposure that you need. And hey, you know what? If you go to your coach and your coach just says, hey, you could be the guy that goes, the woman that goes and fills out the form on MSN's website, by all means. They might not have the time. Maybe they're, a lot of coaches have day jobs. This is not I'll tell you right now, there's not a high school soccer coach in Michigan that's making $50,000 a year to be a high school soccer coach. You know what I mean? They're probably getting $3,000, $4,000. It's not like, oh my gosh, you're making millions of dollars being a high school soccer coach. So there's not like this part of it where you're like, man, I'm well taken care of. That's not it. But someone needs to do it. Because Dan and I just talked about this morning before we went on the air. I'm like, Dan, if teams aren't interacting with you, we're going to leave them out. We'll take care of the schools that are reaching out to us. We've done our part by reaching out through social media, through email blasts, by picking up the phone and making phone calls. If they're not going to do the other side of that, we're not going to interact. We're not going to do it. And that's a shame to each and one of those players on those teams. So moms and dads, players, girls and boys, doesn't matter. Put the pressure on your programs, on your coaches, on your athletic directors to be a part of this because you're going to be left out. We already went over, Dan. We went over. You're going to be left out. Don't be left out. As I say here a lot on the platform, your journey begins with a click, and that's really what it is. But it doesn't have to end there either. It can continue to go on. So Dana is working tirelessly behind the scenes to get these previews ready. We are going to be launching these things here in the coming days and weeks. It's going to be, it's just so much information. And we don't want players and teams to be left out. So if you're out there, and I know it all started with rankings, but it's all the same. It's all the same. Whether we're the media or not, I don't care. This isn't just about MSN. This is about all of them. You want to be listed everywhere, not just one. Now, granted, I'm as someone who's more of a control freak, Dan, and who wants to keep things under one place. I would love it just to be us. I don't care if other entities get the stories as much as I want the stories, but I also understand that there's a lot of other entities out there that could utilize this information and ultimately write stories of their own, which also in turn gets more exposure to the sport of soccer. And that's what we're doing here, is creating more exposure for the boys and girls out there and their teams in the game of soccer here in Michigan. So
that sums it up. It's all about promoting the beautiful game across the state of Michigan, whether you live down in Temperance or Blissfield down near the Ohio border. If you live in Kingsford or Sault Ste. Marie in the UP, you're up in Harbor Springs, Kalamazoo, Niles, Lansing, Tawas, doesn't matter. The sport keeps growing. It's not just 1977 where a dad with a clipboard and blue jeans is learning around a bunch of 8-year-olds around the soccer field with, bowl cut haircuts. It's come a long ways, and it's going to be. We're going to continue to pound the pavement to try to bring as many faces and names to our platform as humanly possible.
No question about it, Dan. No question about it. That's a wrap here for MSN Live on this Wednesday, April the 3rd. Yes, we went 6 minutes late. I did get on my soapbox, and so did Dan, to be fair. I think Dan got on his soapbox.
We all have the right to do that from time to time, right?
But hey, at the end of the day, we need your help. Help us help you. Help us help you. If you want, we know, and Dan, you mentioned it, baseball, basketball, football, those sports just get it, man. They already get the coverage. Soccer is an afterthought. We don't want it to be an afterthought. We want it to be the first thought. We want it to be the number one thing. And there's a place for you to put that information. It's on the Michigan Soccer Network. Don't forget to check out MSN News on the MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Hey, an app is coming soon. That's right. I said it. An app is coming soon. It's developed, just waiting for Apple and Google to approve it. But getting all your MSN news, your rankings, all of that at your fingertips on your phone through the app on Apple or Android devices. What more could you want? Watching our games and our live shows on our app. MSN's app is coming soon. I am super excited about it. I developed it. I learned how to do it on my own, Dan. And I couldn't be more excited about the app that's coming your way here soon. Live soccer games coming here soon, too. Our first games, April 13th and 14th. We'll talk about that here coming up. Those are next weekend. But a lot coming your way. So if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Or else. Subscribe. Like us, share with your friends and family. For Dan Stickrat, I'm Jonathan Turner. So long, everybody. Have a great rest of your week and your weekend. And we'll see you next time on MSN Live. In for Baccarat, and that goes in! Hugo Baccarat gives Flint City a 3-2. Buckley, the ball falls to Buckley. 1-on-1 with Etheridge. What a save! Welcome into the first ever MSN All-State Media Day for girls soccer. Jonathan Turner alongside Dan Stickrat. Ball comes in, a good head! 1-0! Shot, another save from Etheridge. Rebound, and it goes in the back of the net. The Bulldogs up 1-0. Burzma, but then for Vlasma! 3-0. Stewart Heiss with a shot! Upper 90 and in! Effectively today here on the Michigan Soccer Network, we are launching our new division of player recruitment videos. Mario Canoe now finds Stock. Finds Stock's got a left-footed banger. He shoots it!